Okay, thanks everyone for joining. Harish Peri, CMO of Proxyclick here. I'm really excited for another episode of our New World of Work video series. Just as a reminder, our New World of Work video Q&A series features workplace strategists, workplace tech professionals, facilities management, commercial real estate experts, and thought leaders, all of whom are shaping the working environment and trends that we're seeing now. The goal here is to talk about long-term issues and long-term trends that we may be seeing, but also talk about learnings from 2020, because let's face it, 2020 was a year like none other. So with that in mind, I'm extremely excited to introduce Mark Gilbreath, CEO and co-founder of LiquidSpace. And we're gonna have a great conversation about flex space, what that means, what it doesn't mean, a new renaissance in flex space, and why it's an area that we should all be paying attention to. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mark. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about LiquidSpace?
Harish, great to be with you. It's a privilege. And marking the day that we're recording this, Happy New Year to you, sir, and happy Inauguration Day.
Likewise.
An epic day, of course. Yeah, happy to be here. As you said, I'm the founder and CEO of LiquidSpace, a company I started 9 years ago with an idea that maybe at that time seemed a little bit before its time, but it's suddenly in the wake of 2020 become hyper relevant. The company we launched and founded 9 years ago sought to transform the way we think about workplace, transform the way we think about how users of space engage with it. We had a simple idea. Let's build a digital marketplace that lets professionals search, find, and book the best space to work with a click. Right. So we were borrowing notions that were comfortable and well established in the hospitality world, the travel world, but had never been attempted in the real estate world. And we built a digital marketplace where users could find and book, co-working spaces, serviced offices, hotels, and even spaces from landlords. And over the 9 years that have followed, that has evolved dramatically, and it's become actually incredibly strategic for almost every company now in the wake of what's happened this past year.
Yeah, it's almost like it's SaaS in its own way, right? Space as a service, and I'm sure you've heard that before. But it's an idea that may have been interesting in the past, which now is reality. So yeah, I definitely say you're ahead of your time.
Yeah, I dare say, there's like pre-January of last year and post-January of last year. Pre-January of last year, had we been doing this interview then, it's still, the concept of co-working or flexible office was strategic then. Like if we look back on the 10 years leading up to the beginning of this year, co-working and flexible office had gone from being a fringe service that many companies, and maybe even most, used sporadically and when they had the needs of supporting maybe a meeting on the go or an executive in a regional market. Co-working and serviced office space as a service was 1% to 2% of officing,
right?
Leading up to this COVID year. How things have changed. A year on from that, the concept of flexibility and choice and the concept of my workplace being more agile has gone from being a peripheral thought where it was 2% of footprint to being, for many companies now, like the central thought. And the expectations and predictions are that it will be upwards of 30+% of office footprint. Not a decade from now, but in the relatively near future. Incredible acceleration of a trend that was already underway.
Yeah. And you have an interesting vantage point because you're almost the implementer, right? And in many ways, people may talk about this as, it needs to happen, but you're actually the one that they go to make this happen. So what's your take on the role of the office? Like that's something that we hear about a lot, and you're implementing it. So how are you seeing the role of the office evolve? And is the office dead, right? That's like a big claim that people are making. What's your take on all that?
Yeah, the office is a shelter. If we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? There's this need for shelter, right? And there's a residential and sort of home and personal context to shelter and environment. And there's a fairly mature but evolving notion of what the workplace, the physical place needs to be. So why do we need workplace? Well, we need workplace and the shelter and the environment in some cases to support individual work, concentrated work, right? Because because home doesn't always satisfy that. So on some occasions, I may need a certain physical environment, a desk, a monitor, high quality connectivity to do my own individual work. That's one reason why Office exists.
Mm-hmm.
And Office also exists to be a place where group work or collaboration in many forms can happen. Right. So if we want to be really simplistic, individual work and collaborative work, those are two needs, and there's many sub factors of that. But those are two needs that have led to the billions of square feet of office footprint that exists. Now, historically, there was another dimension of this that we need to sort of call attention to. Historically, the cultural mode was, or the expectation of employers was, we create office, do it in the form of headquarters or regional locations, and we design it, we outfit it, we fill it with foosball tables and catered lunches and monitors and air-on chairs. Like we create it and we prescribe it to the employees. In fact, we say, Harish, this is your cube right here. I've hired you. You work for this company. You must be here to do the work. And there was a presumption that the employer would require that the employee come to the office to do that work, whether it was individual work or collaborative work. That notion has been turned on its head or even exploded in the last 12 months. And the reason for that is, last March, COVID hit full force here in the States, a little bit before that in other parts of the world. But we of course, now it's now in the history books. We know that we all had to go home. And in the days and weeks that followed that forced evacuation from the office, lo and behold, there have been some accelerated learnings. Like work didn't end. Like we figured it out. Like people hacked it out. They were able to get by. In fact, with some companies, there's been interesting documentation that work productivity actually improved for some individuals and even some companies as a whole. So within mere weeks of this experiment starting, a lot of companies started to step back and say, my goodness, work continued. Some of our employees are even voicing that there were unexpected upsides and benefits of that. No longer commuting all of the time was a benefit. And furthermore, a lot of companies started to put their attention back onto what they had long suspected, which was, I may have had too much traditional office anyway. So coming out of that, by 2 months into COVID, broadly speaking, a vision had started to form and a lot of companies had adopted it.
Right. And what would be interesting to learn from you is this a luxury that you're seeing that tech companies have, or is this something that even your non-elite white collar sectors are seeing? Because that's also a perception. Like, yeah, of course, if you're you're Google, you can do that because you can work from anywhere. So just curious. Of course, maybe hard manufacturing where you're tied to a facility is one thing, but is there some middle ground for this revolution as well?
Yeah, well, we sort of observe in reflection that work from home saved the day. Like in the days and the weeks that followed the pandemic hitting, it saved the day. We think work from anywhere, a term that you just threw out, will sort of shape the decade. Right. And work from anywhere considers that the workplace, the places, plural, where individual work and collaborative work take place is no longer going to be just the headquarters. It's going to be, the work from anywhere workplace is going to include a continuum, a spectrum. It will include evermore home for some work, for some employees. It will evermore include places near home, flex options that might be available by the day for individual work or by the hour even for collaborative meetups. And HQ will all be the fabric. Work from anywhere will encompass all of those. And to your comment, is it just for the progressive tech companies in San Francisco or Austin, Texas? No, actually, I mean, one of the first and loudest voices, this was 6 weeks into the COVID pandemic, James Gorman, the CEO of Morgan Stanley, was on Bloomberg TV, and he declared 90% of our employees are working at home right now. We've had no major issues. And then this was the money shot. Clearly, we will need much less real estate. Yeah. This is Morgan Stanley, the bank. Now, so since that time, countless tech companies, Twitter, Atlassian, Dropbox, Facebook, Google, have pronounced that they're embracing the concept of work from anywhere or employee choice, but it's also been banks. It's also been insurance companies. It's been
Right.
manufacturers. So I think we are now firmly in a world where work from anywhere will be the sort of central strategy. And depending upon the task at hand and the physical environment that's needed, we should expect that employees will have more choice to exercise around where they work on a given day.
Yeah, it's almost like the supporting work from anywhere will become part of your employment brand.
Yeah.
Because the choice that you mentioned is very important. You know, with I've been reading tons of articles about the mass exodus out of San Francisco.
Yeah.
Not sure how true that is. I mean, it's New York Times, but going to lower cost locations, and I can attest to that, having lived in, you know, near King Street for 8 years. But you know, if people are picking up and moving to wherever is more convenient for them, there isn't really a notion of a talent hub anymore, right? The talent hub is where the talent is versus where VCs pour money or banks are established. And so it's almost like saying, yes, we will work from anywhere becomes a perk that they can offer. Actually, more than a perk, almost an expectation that they need to have to be competitive in a talent market. So it's almost like space is becoming an HR concern in some sense.
Well, it is. And for most companies now that are somewhere on their transformation journey from an HQ-centric world, which was status quo and best practice a year ago, most companies are somewhere on the journey of work from anywhere transformation, which is figuring out the people aspects, the HR aspects, the physical place aspects, the technology aspects of how do we reconsider workplace so that we can enable and engage and hire employees in all of the places where they might be. And so that we can provide those employees with optimal environments to support individual work and collaboration, and both are important wherever they might be. You know, further to that, I think there's been an unconstructive or sort of polarized debate that's robbed too much of the headlines in the last 9 months of, you know, is the office dead or home versus office? It's not so simple as that. The reality is it's right? Home is a part of that spectrum. Office is a part of that spectrum. And then furthermore, office, you know, formal office environments, it's not going to be just HQ and a sprinkling of regional offices. It's going to be thousands of points, you know, large and small.
Yeah, I think you mentioned a very good point, which is home is part of that. And it's, you know, we talk a lot about the employee experience now includes space. So it's you know, it used to be all about how you work, you know, agile teams and collaboration and feeling connected to mission, like pure people stuff. But now how you work and where you work are inextricably linked. And, you know, our view is that a lot of these new ways of working paradigms that were more theoretical in the past are actually now going to happen. So this whole notion of teams self-organizing around problems and every company acting like a knowledge company, that actually can happen because you only go to work and for an event of some sort, to do deep, you know, flow work or to do collaborative work. And you probably only do collaborative work on meaningful collaboration things that add value to the company. And the rest of the fluff can be done anywhere or even at home. And so it's almost an interesting thing where, you know, people sort of connecting the people to the places and is going to be so much more part of the employee experience, more so than just taking an engagement survey, right? It's like, do I decide to go in? When do I go in? How do I go in? Who's going to be there when I go in? Where do I sit? Like that entire flow is we're seeing is going to be a part of this, you know, EX, whatever, 2.0, 3.0, I don't know what 0.0 it's on now. But from a tech perspective, how are you seeing, you know, beyond the obvious like VPN and document sharing technology, right? Beyond all that, kind of how are you seeing what may have been orthogonal technologies converging to support this new kind of flex anywhere world?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is to call out that this notion of pivoting if I'm an occupier, if I'm a user of office space,
Mm-hmm.
client to Proxyclick, client to LiquidSpace, pre-COVID, my worldview was the majority of my office needs and the majority of my office sort of delivery efforts as a real estate leader are, I lease space in a building, I fit it out, and I tell the employees to show up. Right? I'm a real estate leader. I'm the benevolent God that gets to say, this is what the office is, this is where it is, you come. And of course now, it's flipped on its head. It's now my job as a real estate leader is not a benevolent God, but I'm a servant leader. And I'm in the service of Harish, the employee. Where does he live? What environments does he need? How do I provide him with that capability in wholly different ways than I did in the past? It might be that he needs a collaboration space to do scrum work with his colleagues on Tuesdays and Thursdays every other week. I don't solve for that with a lease, right? And so the first observation is this new work from anywhere reality, it presents a new set of problems. And there is a need for a new set of strategies and solutions to address it. We've introduced to the world and tried to define that as saying, look, there is a need for work from anywhere management tools. And these are aiming to solve for the provisioning of flexibility and choice for employees at scale and the transaction of space efficiently from thousands of potential providers that are distributed across thousands of cities and locations. Traditional leasing and traditional workplace practices never tried to solve that. But the mapping of people to place across near infinite combinations is the new challenge area, right? And that's what we're squarely focused on.
Very cool, very cool. So anything that from your assumptions you made into 2020 that you're looking at and saying, nope, not going to do that in 21, or any pivots that you had to go through at LiquidSpace. And I'm asking about that both from a domain perspective, but also just as, an entrepreneur, leader, founder, kind of, learnings for other, scale companies, right? So I'm curious to hear both.
Sure. Well, I think it was 3 or maybe 4 years ago that in a TEDx talk that I did, I sort of put out what was a sincere but admittedly controversial prediction. I suggested or asked the question, 4 years ago, might we be at peak office? And the thinking behind that was, wow, there's a lot of underutilized real estate, and wouldn't the planet be better off? In fact, don't we all have sort of a moral imperative to make better use of the existing assets that are in the built landscape, right? That was the broad sort of challenge, and I sincerely believe that should be peak office. Whether the powers that be were ready to take the foot off the gas pedal and stop building buildings and try to harvest them was another question. But I'd say 4 years on now, I'll reframe that. I'm now convinced, while it may not be peak office, it's peak portfolio. Like, the traditional leased footprint of the average enterprise has hit its peak. Now, at the same time, it's the dawn of infinite workplace, work from anywhere, right? So with that clarity now, with that sort of moral clarity and analytical clarity of the market opportunity, COVID has inspired LiquidSpace to become even more focused on this now clear white hot center. Mm-hmm. That white hot center is companies need the tools and the property partnerships to act on with urgency work from anywhere, right? Yep. So we are hyper focused on providing the tools to enable mid-sized and larger companies to be able to confidently and safely deliver workplace as a service to their employees at scale.
Yeah, it's the elastic compute cloud of workspace, right?
Absolutely. Well said.
It's the AWS for workspace. It's pretty cool. Very cool. More than very cool. I'm curious. This is one of those situations where, the change happened so rapidly. Like everything, the whole world blew up overnight, and then we're still seeing the ramifications. There's always going to be the thought leaders and the entrepreneurs that are out front because they're connecting the dots. But from a decision maker perspective, like who who do you think needs to be, at a your average mid-sized or even enterprise grade company that may traditionally have a global footprint, right? So, and, North America headquarters, EU headquarters, traditionally, let's say 10,000 employees globally. Like, who do you think in that case should be driving this kind of return to the new workplace
Yeah, that's a
movement?
great question. Here's some of what we have seen and learned.
Yeah. Curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Many companies, I won't say
Mm-hmm.
most, but many companies have seen the enormity of this moment. They have clarity on what the implications could be. And on that front, they see two things. They see that they have clarity that there's quite likely a substantial economic savings that they can achieve by rationalizing their traditional footprint. And so the CFO is now in the room in the strategy team. He or she is looking to pull that lever. They also see an extraordinary opportunity to provide empowerment and maybe even augment productivity and the experience of the employee by providing choice. So HR, Chief People Officer, is now in the room, right? IT, in many cases, is in the room because there's issues of info security and policy and governance if employees are going to be working in more places than just the traditional campus. And then, of course, the workplace leader, the real estate leader, is in the room because she or he is the one trying to decode and figure out how they're going to deliver workplace at scale on demand, for example. So many companies have formed the Tiger teams or the strategy teams that are bringing all those voices together. And to those that are maybe early in that journey or haven't yet started, it can be terrifying. Like it is, like doing it well is a multi-dimensional, multi-departmental initiative. But like the playbooks are being written. Partners like Proxyclick, the LiquidSpace are I think there to help organize that work. But they ought to, like, all those voices should be in the room. HR should be in the room. They should, if companies want to grab and get the potential returns of hiring efficiency and retention efficiencies and gains by embracing anywhere, HR has to be in the room. Finance ought to be in the room if you want to see the totality of ROI that can come from reducing your fixed footprint and expanding into flex. And so these voices are needed. It's a new era.
Yeah, absolutely. That's and it'll be interesting to see how, you can almost imagine like the kickoff session with the CFO, CHRO, head of facilities or security, and then the CIO in a room. And it's, it's sort of a dream state to say they all get aligned. And, so the question is sort of, and this is the question we're grappling with, right? Is like, which North Star is the North Star?
Well,
so there's almost, go ahead. So go ahead. There's almost like we said, here's another role that's in the room.
I'll make a prediction. The board.
Oh yeah, of course.
Is in the room. The Wall Street analysts are standing outside the room with new expectations. I'll predict in the somewhat disruptively near future, it's going to become commonplace on earnings calls for informed analysts to be asking you, Harish, you're the CEO of this 10,000 person company. What have your work from anywhere cost reduction gains been this past quarter?
Right.
Where are you on your traditional portfolio rationalization journey? How close to done or optimized are you? Like the accountability, the expectation and accountability is going to be coming for companies, public companies, to be moving down this path, I predict.
Yeah. And they may say like, have your engagement scores gone up?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Like everyone's going to be, because it's supposed to impact everyone. Then you bring up a good point. Public company may have a very different North Star than maybe a private or PE backed, because we're trying to figure out that ultimately, are we optimizing for the experience of the people that work there and the contractors? Because if they're happy, sort of everything else will line up behind that. And the footprint reduction or the footprint optimization, I don't have an answer. It's just more of a thought.
I think we have to reach for more than just that. Like
Yeah.
the people is vital. Our planet is under duress,
Yeah.
right? So, we've perhaps been, in recent years here in the US, we could be preoccupied by nearer term, shorter term drama. And certainly the pandemic of this moment has been, I mean, you can't put it into words. Like, it's been like the impact it's had and is having, the loss of life and the economic implications can't be ignored. There's an urgency to that. But right beyond that, right behind that, and what we'll be facing, a year from now when COVID's behind us, is a planet in duress.
Yeah.
So what's the North Star? Our internal North Star, which I'd love to see people embrace, is more happy people working in better spaces. The planet smiles. Mm-hmm. That's our internal mission statement.
Yeah.
And it seeks to sort of pull in the notion that, like, we can have happier and more productive employees. Mm-hmm. We can do so in a way that directly aids the improvement of the planetary situation. We have to be more efficient and more thoughtful from a sustainability and carbon footprint standpoint with our real estate and workplace motions. Yeah. And those things can be complementary. Like,
that's yeah. And actually, the footprint part is definitely fascinating to me, because I'm almost thinking, okay, if I'm a real estate, if I'm in charge of the corporate real estate for a large company with a lot of built properties, right, in our owned buildings, not like a multi-tenant scenario, what do I do? Like, if I say, okay, I predict that I'm only going to need 50% of the space, does LiquidSpace just come in and handle the rest, or how does that work?
Well, I mean, most people.
Sorry, I'm switching topics, but it's fascinating.
Many people know that LiquidSpace is the digital marketplace where you can search, find, and book, i.e. procure a space by the hour or the day or a month or a year for an individual or a team of 100. Like, you can find and buy space there. It's also a place where space can be sold, where space can be monetized. So the supply side of our business includes, every household name in co-working and a growing list of institutional landlords. But it's also a place where private companies that now have excess space can promote it and sell it. So we're feeding both sides of the work from anywhere transformation. Mm-hmm. The monetization of excess space as it gets rationalized, and the procurement of on-demand and dedicated space in thousands of locations as companies embrace work from anywhere.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, I mean, and so anything else that you want to touch on that we didn't cover? I mean, for people that are watching this, please go check out Mark's TED Talk from a couple of years ago. But it was visionary then, and it's hyper relevant now. So I definitely learned a lot from watching that too. But yeah, anything else you wanna add that you think we didn't touch on?
Yeah, well, I think, like, one of the other, if you're a PropTech or CRE tech kind of geek like you and I are, I think one of the other urgencies and opportunities of the moment is the integration of platforms. Like, I think, tools for access, tools for tenant experience. Like, there's some interesting knitting going on right now. LiquidSpace came to the market as a platform with all of the anywhere mapped. We're now doing some exciting work in integrating that on-demand marketplace with other tools that perhaps are being used by employees when they're on-site or on campus.
Right.
I think the future state that we need to drive to, and collaboration opportunities for PropTech companies like yours and mine, is how do we start to converge that technology platform? How do we give companies an operating system and employees a mechanism to be able to navigate work from anywhere? Yeah, whether it's near home or booking a desk back at the headquarters.
Yeah, and this is actually, if there ever was a time to focus on user experience, this is it. Because you almost have to imagine this employee, at home. Everything they knew is no longer the same, and so now you're saying, you want to go in, you can go in, but you're no longer tied to that desk that had your pictures on there. You're just going to a space. It might sound cool in theory, but if any part of the experience of that flow which, we're big proponents of. Any part of that flow breaks, you've lost that employee likely, or that opportunity, because they're going to say, this is not worth the hassle. I'm just going to stay at home today, and then you over time risk alienating folks, and it can erode the culture. So this is sort of that time to say, like, how do I get on this thing? And then very quickly, I want to go in. Where am I going in? Oh, are my friends going to be there? Great. I'm going to schedule a little bit of time, 2 hours in this meeting room. When I, get there, I feel safe because it's all touchless.
Right.
And then, like, everything is just kind of seamless, right? These are small things, but it will, if these are not executed well at scale, this whole thing will start to crumble, is our view.
Yeah. We, Harish, we share that view. Like, we have to, the PropTech industry needs to reorient itself around the consumerization of the experience.
Yep.
Because the final arbiters of whether we do our jobs well or not are going to be individual employees making decisions. Like, they're going to have the option of staying at home or not going into a particular property because they don't trust that it's safe.
Yep.
Or not booking at a particular space because the experience was too frictionless, or missing the opportunity to go to a particular location because it wasn't made visible to them that their 4 other colleagues were going to be there.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So there are
feeling skeeved out because you asked some questions that may have been a little bit over the line, right? Like, this privacy thing is it's almost it's ethereal, but it's real now. Like, for a period of time, if there's temperature scans happening, or there's who knows, or maybe time, show me your vaccination record. If that's such a deeply sensitive topic, and it's almost like this psychological safety to say, listen, this data will not be used against you at all. It's more for the safety of everybody else there, and it'll just be checked at that instant and then not retained. Like, those kind of simple things, but that have deep impacts on a person's overall feeling of well-being. Like, these are all going to be legit concerns. They're not even going to be, they are legit concerns now. And so the winners will be the ones that incorporate all that into the employee experience and the flow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And let's not forget that when the market reopens, when employers fully reopen their buildings, we will be at least 12 months into deep behavior change. Mark and Harish and Casey and millions of employees will have learned how to get by at home. Some will be thrilled with it. Some will be eager for something different, but we all will have conformed to that expectation, which means that the office, broadly speaking, whether it's a desk for a day at a co-working space, or it's that empty seat waiting for you back at the headquarters, the office has to earn back the consumer's trust. It has to invite you back. There has to be a reason.
You have to want to go back. Yep. No, that's spot on. Yeah, I think we are at a I definitely think a cusp in work history, if you will. And yeah, I can't wait to see what happens in 21. It's going to be super exciting, positive for sure, after 2020. So I'm super excited, and I'm sure you guys are too. So look, I want to thank you for taking the time. I can go on for another 2 hours, but we want to keep this tight for our audience. So thank you again for your time, and look forward to continuing this collaboration in the future.
Absolutely. Stay safe. There's lots of important work for us both to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.